Hello, is anybody here?
Okay, I hope everyone is back so we can start again. Okay. So we were talking about creating the policy manual and we discussed some of the key policies. Now I will further talk about the structure of policy and procedure and how to implement these policies. So we discussed all of it. There are just some examples for your reference. So usually when we say equal employment and commitment to diversity, we talk about um, all employees and applicants without regard to race, color, ancestry, national origin, gender, sexual orientation, religion, age, disability, etc. They are given an equal opportunity and to all terms and conditions of employment, not just hiring, but also placement, promotion, termination, transfer, layoff, recall, leave, compensation, training, etc. Conflict of interest, we discussed in detail again. So what it states is that we expect all employees to conduct themselves and company business in a manner that reflects the highest ethical standard and avoiding real and potential conflict of interests. And then it further goes what do you mean by conflict of interest and some examples of conflict of interest. Now, certain rules which you all should know. Number one, you are writing a new policy handbook, you are updating a policy handbook. Always remember, it is a recursive process. Writing policies is a recursive process. What do you mean by a recursive process? It simply means that you cannot write in the first sitting. You have to write you have to rewrite and then you have to finalize. Like, for example, you create step one is you create a policy. Then we send this policy for review. When we create a policy, my personal process is we call it the first draft. Some people also call it rough draft. Because when you make a policy, many times yourself are not clear whether this is going to be the final format of the policy or there will be some changes. As many people will read it, they will have their suggestions. So are we going to make some changes after that? So we are not sure. Hence, we say it is the first draft so that there is a scope of improvement. And you can also call it rough draft. Because when we say it is rough draft, then somebody is suggesting something, they will feel good. Oh, it was a rough draft and I suggested something and they improved it. So there is a contribution in this policy. I have contributed something to the policy. That's why you can call it first draft or rough draft. Now comes review. So usually once you have created it on certain discussions with the management and you send it back to the usually management, and then it is reviewed also with the line managers. So usually that is what we call initial draft. So initial draft is something that you will send to the line managers, or not only line managers, obviously with leadership also. So you can say with stakeholders. Now, stakeholders are not only your shareholders, maybe if you're a private company, then your shareholders also, board of directors also. But these are essentially leadership position people in the company and managers in the company, departmental heads in the company. Okay, that is the initial draft. So first is the rough draft or first draft, then is the initial draft, which is actually the second draft, and then comes the final draft. So you made changes in the initial draft as suggested by these line managers and stakeholders. Why these suggestions will come? Because people representing different departments, heads of different departments, they will help you to, sometimes it's not only for, just for their recognition, sometimes they can also help you not to make a stupid mistake. You never know, you are actually making a stupid mistake by ignoring something which is very obvious, or not taking into consideration something which is very important. Like, let's say you are creating a reimbursement policy and you say that employees will get their expenses within 7 days. Now your finance department says it is impossible. With the current process, it is impossible to pay within 7 days. You have minimum 15 days. So they saved you from making a potential mistake. That's where review becomes so important. So from that review, you will imbibe something. Policy will change slightly or may not change at all. And then you will get a final draft. The final draft obviously needs to go for approval to the management again. Management approves it, then you publish, and then you can update it whenever you want. So this is a cycle of creation, review, approval, publish, update, which goes on in all policies and procedures. Okay. So what is the key thing here to remember? That it's a recursive process. It undergoes changes, and usually there are 3 steps, which is first draft, or you can call it rough draft, then the initial draft, where you have understood the policy in a better way, and then the final draft, which includes all the suggestions and improvements from various stakeholders. All right. Yeah. Now let's move on. Some other principles of writing policies. So this is all covered, different types of policies, employment policy, employment status, record, etc. They all are HR policies. It's already covered in the table of content. I no need to particularly talk about each of this. E-policies I have already shared with you, social media policy. After policy comes the procedure, and then there is a form. I will explain that also. Okay, yeah. So with policies, usually we have a form. So you can see yep. So what I want to say here is this. When you are writing an employee handbook, usually your policies are written in a table of content, right? Let's say you have a policy number 1. Now in that policy, you may have a process or even sub policy. For example, attendance policy. So attendance policy is given number 1. Now under attendance policy, there can be a sub policy 1.1, late coming. So we have a separate policy for late coming. Now for late coming, there will be a process, isn't it? Let's say the process is process will be having multiple steps. So how we will write 1.1.1 step 1, 1.1.2 step 2. Let's say in step 1 we have a form. Step 1 has a form. Okay. Okay. So how this form will be? The form will be numbered like 1.1.1.1. You understand? This is a format of creating flow of policy to the form. What it tells us is that this form belongs to policy number 1, sub policy of same policy number 1, first sub policy of policy number 1, and procedure step number 1 and form number 1. We call it business process documentation, BPM, business process documentation. All right. I hope everyone understood this. Many times people get confused. It's a very simple thing, and people are not able to write down the forms properly and procedure number properly. It's a very simple thing to do. Whenever you are part of those operational excellence committees, because HR many times is part of management committee, operational excellence committee, there these things become very important to know and systemize your work. All right. Okay, let's move on now. So if you have understood this, then all this becomes your, it's clear for you. The connection of policy to procedure to form, uh, you need to understand that you should manage the form properly. So you will manage the form properly if your documentation is proper, if your numbering is proper. Now remember, writer has an ultimate role in policy writing. So this is a very interesting topic to discuss actually. So I remember when I was first time when I was reading an employee manual, and my GM, I remember, he was writing some policies, and he said, Yogesh, can you, and it's, I think back then in 2007 or 8, I mean, it was a big deal because I think computers were just becoming popular. Laptops, actually, computers were there before that, but laptops were becoming more popular. And I remember my GM, he was sitting with the laptop and with a dictionary, you know, and he was going back to the dictionary and then going back to the laptop. And I said, what you are doing, sir? He said, Yogesh, I'm writing a policy. So I said, okay. Because I was new, I didn't know much about policy writing in that time. So I said, but what you are using dictionary for? And he said, see, these are certain skills of HR which you should know. And one of the things is that when you are writing policies, when you are writing memo, always try to use some words which are, uh, very impactful and difficult to understand for common folks. So I said, but aren't we writing for them only? Then he said, no, 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 no. Policies are not written for people, employees. Policies are written for the CEOs. We have to make the CEO happy, managing director happy. That's our goal. Now, after 13, 14 years, 15 years, I would say do opposite of what he was saying. Okay. We are not supposed to uh, choose the words which are very difficult and choose an English to impress the CEO. The goal of a policy is not to impress the CEO, but to reach the last organization, to make it so simple that everyone can understand. That's the objective. Okay. Yeah, but many of you, may not be doing it. Some of you may be doing it already. So let's further discuss about the role of the writer. Remember, policy writing is a research process. You have to take, in research, what you do? You take references from various places. So in the same way, in policy writing also, you can take references from various places. And you have to take references, to be honest. So conduct your research, take references. First, you have to write in a very simple language, simple manner. And then you have to, like we discussed, write, rewrite, and then rewrite before taking the approval. At least create 3 draft of the policy. A good policy manual is a result of many hours of thinking, analyzing, researching, writing, and rewriting. We should know this. Do not expect to write the manual on the first attempt. Do not expect to write on the first attempt only. Even if you have good understanding of your business process, mission, and objectives, believe you can communicate policies clearly. You have to make sure that it is a recursive process. 3 C's of policy writing. Most important part. 3 C's of policy writing are: be clear. Thank you. Be clear and direct. Clarity. What do you mean by clarity? Don't use unnecessary words. Don't make it long. Remove all redundancy. Don't use cliches, overblown phrases. Don't remember this is my motto in my last few years after 2012. This is what I have learned, and I want to share this with you. Try to minimize the fluff wherever you can when you are writing any business related email or document. The more repetition of words, synonyms, redundancies are there, the less impactful it will become. Even when you are writing an email. Okay? Don't use cliches. Be clear and direct. Make every word advance your meaning. Use smaller sentences. What do you mean by that? Use smaller, punchy sentences. Your sentences should be smaller and punchy. Why? Anyone? Why I'm saying this? Smaller, punchy sentences. Why? Because if you read the rules of copywriting, one of the copywriting rule is that if a sentence have 43 words, it will only be understood by 10% of the population. What it means? That 90% will not understand. It's a huge waste of your time writing long sentences. And I was culprit because I studied literature. When I was in college, I studied literature. So in literature, when we study all these plays and Tolstoy and all these writers, what happens is that you start writing long sentences using connectors. And that is one way to get higher score in IELTS also. If you want to get a higher score in IELTS writing, do that. Write long sentences, use connectors, start with if, use passive voice. It shows your grammatical range. Okay? So, but in policy writing, do opposite. Don't show your grammar range. Don't show your lexical range also. That I know so many words. I know I can write complicated grammar. You can write, but what is the benefit of writing if no one understands that? So I realized this after a long time what mistake I was making in my policy writing and even in email and memo writing. I was making these mistakes for a long time. I used to write a very complicated sentence it becomes like a poem which no one understands. At least I shouldn't say no one, but at least common people, most of the people who have little knowledge of grammar or English, if you write a simple sentence, they will understand. So, like I was mentioning, the copywriter's research, 43 words, 90% people won't understand. If you have 8 words in your sentence, then 90% people will understand what you want to say. Have you seen writing of have you seen Nike? Full stop after every word. Yeah. That's an example of making things simple. Make things simple and stupid. Like, just do it, full stop, right? So you have understood what they want to say, and everyone will understand, just do it. If imagine if Nike says, one of our well thought philosophies, which we ruminated across 5 decades and finalized, was that we should just do it. Now, in this entire, I don't know, it's a sentence or paragraph, I just said one thing, just do it. But I said it in a more complicated way, eloquent way, so that understand it, right? They will read this sentence, they will not understand what the hell I'm talking about. It becomes unnecessarily, it becomes complicated. So don't do that, guys. Make it simple. Okay. So that's what I mean by clarity. And it automatically covers the next point, which is conciseness. Conciseness. Concise means summarized, brief, small. Make this small change in your emailers. Make this small change in your life when you are writing. You will see people will understand you more. It's a very simple thing to do. Hmm? So conciseness means small, and one more thing you will realize when you do that. It is easier to write long sentences. It is difficult to write punchy sentences. Sentences which take the meaning to the next level with every word. It's difficult. It takes more time. Right? Okay. So use clarity, conciseness, and coherence. What is coherence? Coherence means don't jump topics in a incoherent manner. It will create ambiguity. So let's say I started with attendance. Then I should talk about absence. Then I should talk about leaves. First paid leave, vacation, then annual leave, and then holidays. This is the right coherence, the right logic of writing. I start with attendance, then I jump to payroll. Then I come back to vacation. Then I go back to some other place. It is all over the place. People will not understand anything. Why you write? Why you like reading stories? Why we like reading stories? Why all the children like stories? Why? Because there is logic. There is coherence in the story. There was a king a long time ago. There was a king. Now you are interested. Okay, there was a king. Then what? There was a queen. Okay, then what? Then they went to the jungle, right? Then a lion appeared. There is a story, right? And now you get interested in that story. It is connecting, it is linking, and you like it, and you are enjoying it. And you become curious. Then what? What next? Imagine your policy. Do you think somebody reads your policy, they are excited what this HR is going to write next? No, they are bored. Yeah. When even you explain in a meeting, they all sleep, no? In the meeting. They start yarning. Um, yes. So make it exciting. And one of the ways to make it exciting is share some examples, like share some stories. Like I shared some stories with you when I was explaining the social media use policy. Okay, great. So some rules, Just remember, like I said, I have realized that these rules are simple and should be used. Keep your writing simple. Okay? Do not inflate your language. Don't make the ordinary seem extraordinary by using big words. Okay? Strive for simplicity. That's one simple formula. All right, guys? Make it simple, stupid, meaningful, relevant. Use jargons judiciously. So sometimes maybe writing a jargon is important, but try to avoid like Batna, Abita. These are some of the terms which we use. Let's say Batna is a common term for procurement. But I don't know as an HR person what the hell you are talking about Batna. I don't know what is Batna. Abita is a simple term which can be used in finance, accounting. I don't know what do you mean by Abita. If you say earning before taxes, I will understand. If you write Abita, I will not understand. So use these jargons judiciously when you are writing a policy. Like I said, use conservative business language. Don't flex your lexical muscles. Don't try to show how deep your English knowledge is. If you go too deep, you will drown and people won't understand anything. Okay. Why I'm sharing all this with you? Because the purpose of writing a policy, like I said, is to make the common people understand it. And not only understand, implement it. This is what my CEO told me one day. He said, Yogesh, you spent 6 months creating all the policy manuals, such a hard work you have put into it. And now, if people don't use it, you wasted 6 months of your career. So if you are doing it, do it with do it if you do are doing it, do it properly. No, do it with the best of your abilities and in a very professional way. In that company, he said that I don't care if you have written a policy handbook. What I care is when you tell me a date, by what date all these policies will be implemented in the company. And then I said, sir, but it depends on yeah, he was the managing director. So I said, it depends on line manager and so many people. So I said, I don't care about line manager. Line manager did not create this manual. You created it, no? So it's your responsibility. I want you to implement it, not the line managers. So if you want to implement it, then keep all these things in your mind. You can use ISO format if you wish. In ISO format, what is the difference? It's a very simple format. So ISO department, ISO team, when they come for audit, they want the policy in these formats, and there are certain things which you must have, which you can avoid. Like there must be a title for every policy. True. Now this you can take together: background, purpose, and scope of the policy. Okay, so you can have one background or purpose or scope together. You can put it in one purpose and scope. Then obviously, where most important part is your policy statement. Step 3. Step 4 is your procedure. Sorry. How? So in procedure, there will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 multiple steps. Then if you have any indicator for this policy, how do you know the policy is working or not? Like audit. We will audit it after 1 year. So audit becomes an indicator here. Then review. You should review policy annually, twice in a year, or maybe biannually, or annually, or in 2 years, 3 years, whenever ISO audit happens, you should audit it, review it. So these are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 essential part of ISO format. Okay. So what you need to do, you need to write a policy in a ISO format. Do you want me to share or show you? I cannot share, but I can show you one of the policies written. So what you need to do next, before the next class, you need to show me one policy written in the ISO format. Okay, I'm giving you one example here. One second, let me share my screen, guys. All right. So this is a very simple example of a policy. So you can see we have, let's say, a employee training and development policy for Blue Ocean. So you can see a date. I hope you can view my screen. You can take a picture of it if you wish. So there is a date, initiated by whom, approved by whom, and if you have a document reference number, it can be there. Employee training and development policy, purpose, scope, policy statement. Okay. Then there is a procedure. So there is one way of writing procedure is that you write a procedure in steps like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Another is you just create a chart like this. If you create a chart, it becomes even more impactful. When you create a chart, it becomes even more impactful. Then there is a KPI, which is, what is KPI of this? Report from CRM and review, when it was reviewed. So you can see it's a very simple, minimal policy. Anyone can read it and understand it, and not complicated at all. This should be the purpose of your policy writing. All right. So you have to create one policy. Like I said, you have to write down the title, purpose, scope, policy statement, then the procedure, then the KPI or indicator, then review. You need to write down. All right. Okay. Now, once the policy is written, then what we do marketing, we do training, we do reward for implementation. I will quickly spend some time on each of this point. Marketing, how you market your policy. Like I said, our job is to implement the policy, right? Our job is not to just write policy and then sleep. My job is done, policy is written. No, your work starts once you write the policy. So you have to think like a marketing person, especially when you are writing the policy. When you are writing the policy, you should think like a marketing person. I remember one of the CEOs telling me one day that you have put a lot of hard work in writing all these policies. But there is no point if people do not use it on the shop floor. Similarly, we need to make sure that people use these policies, and for that, we need to market it properly. And how to market it? Think like a salesperson. Think about the pain of your people, what pain they are going through. So, if you start with a question, they will understand it better. Are you struggling with managing your annual leaves, for example? Use our HRMS or apply for leaves in HRMS. So it should be interesting, it should be simple, and it should be for, like I said, for all the common people in the company. So market it. Then training, provide training to your people. Training is not just limited to a PowerPoint presentation. You can create obviously a PDF format and share it with all of them. You can make it available on HRMS. You can make it available on company's website or intranet. What else? You can create audios and videos for these policies. I remember creating a policy video in one of the organizations where we said, are you struggling with this? Is it taking a lot of time for you to accomplish it? Why don't you use our new policy? Just do this. And that's why the company has thought about this new policy, and we have implemented the new policy. And according to new policy, you have to do step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. It will save your time. So make it interesting for people. You can create videos, two people talking to each other. Hey, where are you going? Oh, I'm just rushing to my line manager. Why? I want to apply for my annual leave. Aren't you using HRMS? What is HRMS? Oh, you don't know? Do you have a smartphone? Yes, I have. Just download our HRMS app. And then from here, you can apply for annual leave. You don't have to go to anyone. You don't have to fill any paper, any application. And then the person does it and he says, oh, that's really easy and it's nice. So I will be using HRMS from now. So now this is a simple gimmick, simple marketing of your policies and changes in your policies. But it helps people to get curious about it and try it, and then the implementation comes into picture. I remember that video was shared across 1000 people within 2 days, 48 hours. I'm sure our mailer would not reach to that open ratio. Okay, so that's the training part. It's our job to implement. I think if you focus on implementation, all these ideas will naturally come to you. And then reward. People who are early adopters of your policies, who start changing their behavior, they start implementing the new policy, what you should do with them? Appreciate them, reward them, motivate them, recognize them. Right? So like we discussed, you can use printed manuals, you can use PDF files, then you can use trainings. Avoid policy proliferation. What does it mean? The policy should not be longer than a page. Lengthy policies will not be read or understood by the people. Keep on deleting the obsolete policies. Don't have duplicated policies in the company. And evaluation. So when we should do evaluation of policies? All the time, whenever it is needed. Sometimes, like work from home. When you last time evaluated work from home? I'm sure in March, when the lockdown happened, people started looking at the work from home policy. Before that, nobody worried about work from home policy. So whenever need arises, you have to evaluate the policy, number one. Number two, officially you should evaluate every year. All the policies must be internally evaluated every year. Why to wait for 2 year, 3 year, 5 year? Second, who should evaluate? Internally, HR department should evaluate HR policies on time to time basis. Whereas if you have an HR auditor, you can ask the HR auditor also to evaluate it, maybe after some time. And then how? How to evaluate? I think that's very simple. Use any audit, ISO audit, internal audit, um, functional audit, or the organization, if you have an audit department, you can use them also. And let them go through your policies and KPIs. Is your policy performing? They can tell you. Now, this is end of our policy and procedure. Okay. Right. So I hope you have understood this chapter. Like I said, it is a very vital aspect of managing people, because you cannot drive your vision and mission without having proper policies. You need to create policies, and then you need to make sure people are trained, they're well informed. Okay. And then you create policy, procedure, form, infrastructure in the company. Make it simple, stupid, like I said, coherent, logical. And then, after doing all the hard work, then leave it or sleep over it? No. Try harder to implement it. Because objective is to implement. Find out innovative ways of implementing. Create charts. Show it to your people. Show policies everywhere. Show procedures everywhere, so that people get interested and start using a different way of working. And then you can evaluate. I'm sure by this, if we are serious about it, we can implement all the policies. All right, guys. So again, thank you for being in the session. I hope you enjoyed. I mean, more than enjoy, I hope you learned something new. Yeah. And if you have any doubts, you can ask before we leave for today's session. Anyone, if you have some questions, Neetu, Taimur, Yathiraj, and Wali, Casey, Mahaya, Kathy, Daria, Patricia. If you guys have any question, do let me know.
Yes, sir. Can we discuss the preparation of the final exam? Kindly advise us about the studying process. I know everybody has his own internal way.
Yeah.
But can you just give us some advices about the studying process and how to prepare? Actually,
Sure.
for me, I think that I memorize in verbatim, so with understanding each chapter. But for me, I pace and memorizing the points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Sure. I will tell you. I think we have some people who have already passed our CHRP, which was, I think, a similar experience. I think if they can share their experience, that would be better, because they can tell us from the student perspective how they passed and how was the exam or what they did. Anyone wants to share somebody who passed the CHRP? Akshaya, you want to say something?
Yeah, I think it was pretty clear. I mean, there's nothing to memorize or anything because it's an open book exam. I think as long as we understand the concepts, it's pretty easy to, learn that way. I think the main thing is about understanding concepts and understanding, what it actually means. But apart from that, the questions were pretty straightforward. Sometimes some questions would be a bit tricky, but like I said, if you understand the concept, I think you don't need to stress too much about preparing for the exam, because it's not like you need to. It's an open book exam, so as long as you understand where things are and understand the meaning, I think you can refer and you can learn.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you for answering my question.
No worries.
Okay, anyone else who want to add something to what Akshay said? Somebody who passed the CHRP?
There is any study material, anything for that, for exam preparation point?
Yeah, so for two things I want to share here. Like first, what Akshay said, I 100% agree with her. If you remember what she said you need to understand it. It's not about memorizing, it's about understanding. If you understand all the concepts, the exam is going to be very easy. But if you don't understand, if you miss the classes, and this is what I have seen in the last 3 years or so, I have seen people who fail in the exam are only those who either miss the class, or they are not serious, they are not listening to what we are saying, they are busy in their kitchen, or nowadays due to this situation we cannot really understand what people are doing. In the class we can always poke them, we can ask questions so that they are alert, but when you are from home, then I don't have any control over that. But anyway, yeah, if you are there in the class and if you understand all these things, if you are part of this communication and discussion, then our job is to make sure that you understand the concept. Now so I agree with her when she said memorizing won't help, but understanding will help. Two things. One, remember, even in CHRM, 50% of your score will the questions may come from CHRP only. So even if you are writing CHRM, prepare for CHRP again. Okay, you have to go through the CHRP book once, or at least slides once. Coming to the CHRM, it's same concept based exam. There will be no questions which are going to test your conceptual your abilities to define something, or understand the English. No, it's a simple conceptual examination. They will give you, like in CHRM, what kind of questions will be there. They will give you a case study, a simple one, not complicated, a simple case study, and they will say, okay, in this situation what will happen, and you have to give the answer. So if you have, like for example, today, policies and procedures, the simplest question will be that procedure comes before policies. True or false? False, right? You should be immediately saying false, because policy comes before the procedure. So and then there can be questions based on how you create policies. So when we are writing policies, we should be careful about 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you have understood what we discussed today, you will never be wrong. Okay, so that's how they are going to test your understanding of these concepts. And like I said, total 80 questions will be there, multiple choice, 2 hours time, which is sufficient for all of us. And just be here in all the classes, revise these topics during the week, and if you also complete your assignments, that will be additional help for all of us, or you, to perform better in the exam. Okay?
Okay, that's clear. And will we have a demo exam before the final?
Mock test, you can ask the consultant. they may
Oh,
provide you a mock test.
okay. I will.
Okay, great. All right, guys. So, great week. Till then, bye-bye. Take care. Stay safe and take care of your families as well.
You too.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Happy
Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a great day.